The Canon R7 Mark II. Although it's not released yet, there are rumors of it being in production and maybe released this or next year. So when it comes to the Canon R7 Mark II, what are some things that I personally want to see in a new camera if this is a real thing, or if it is to come out whenever it is to come out? Now, full transparency, in this video, I'm just talking about things that I think would be cool in a new camera in the R7 Mark II as a current R7 user, but this is definitely not what I think will be in the Canon R7 or what should be in the Canon R7. I don't even think anything I say will be in the Canon R7 Mark II if it does come out, but I think these things would be pretty cool. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. One of the things I would love to see in the Canon R7 Mark II is the backside illuminated CMOS sensor. The Canon R7 does already sport a regular CMOS sensor, but with the backside illuminated, it will produce better results in low light. For example, if you're at 1200 ISO on a Canon R7 and the regular CMOS sensor, or any regular CMOS sensor for that matter, you can kind of double that and see the same results on a backside illuminated sensor. So since the Canon R7 is a crop sensor camera, it does not perform as well as full frame cameras in low light, but putting a backside illuminated CMOS sensor in there will just double the ability of its performance in low light. So that's one thing I think would be really cool to see in a Canon R7 Mark II should it happen. Also, with that backside illuminated sensor, you're gonna get faster readout speeds. Not that the original R7 doesn't read out fast enough, but why not be a little bit better or a little bit faster if you have the ability to do so? That's number one. Let's move on to number two. One other thing I think would be cool to see in the Canon R7 Mark II is the replaced scroll wheel. So we see the scroll wheel that is similar on the Canon R6, R6 Mark II, R5, where it's right there at the thumb, right around the OK button. And then on the Canon R7, we have the scroll wheel kind of up top. It's kind of awkward to get to. It's not hard, but it is kind of awkward. And I feel like the scroll wheel that is on the Canon R6, R6 Mark II, R5 is just a lot more ergonomically pleasing than on the R7. I do love the R7 scroll wheel because I can scroll through photos fast or scroll through the menu fast, but it being in a more ergonomically pleasing place, and honestly a place I just think makes a whole lot more sense, I think that'll be a really cool update on the R7 Mark II should it happen. Now, in moving the scroll wheel, the joystick does not have to move. They can leave the joystick there because I do really enjoy the joystick, but just move that scroll wheel down just to make it more similar to the lower number models that we see, and we're all good to go, Canon. Hope you're listening. Anyway, let's move on to number three. I think it'd be really cool to get a rate button on the Canon R7 Mark II should that camera happen. If you look on cameras like R6 Mark II, Canon R5, you see in the top left next to the menu button there is a rate button. This helps when you're taking portrait sessions or if you're recording videos that you can hit the rate button and it will kind of save once you upload it into Lightroom or Final Cut Pro. You can find that 1 or 2 or 5, how many pictures that you rate. You can pull those out the bunch immediately because you have rated them beforehand. On the Canon R7, obviously there's no rate button, there's just a menu button. So I think adding that feature would be cool. I don't know how much of a change they need to make to the design to make that happen. I don't know if that's having to make an entirely bigger body in order to make that happen, but like I said, this is not things that I necessarily expect on a Canon R7 Mark II, but things that I think would be cool to add to the Canon R7 Mark II just to make it, I don't know, more pleasing to me because I'm the only one that matters. That's a joke. So the rate button, I think that'd be really cool to add in if it's not too much trouble for Canon. So if you are in production of the Canon R7 Mark II and you're listening to this, put that one in there for your boy. All right. Anyway, let's move on to number 4. Now this thing I feel like everybody wants to see in every Canon camera, whether it be Canon, Sony, Fuji, Nikon, whatever. We all want full-size HDMIs. Sony, I know a lot of their production cameras have full-size HDMIs already, and Canon is late to the game with full-size HDMIs. They just put full-size HDMI in the Canon R5 Mark II, but I believe that that is the only camera that is not a cinema camera that has full-size HDMI. I believe full-size HDMI will be better off, so we don't have to buy adapters, and the micro HDMIs and the mini HDMIs are really fragile and they can break easily. So just put full-size HDMI in there and then we're good to go. That'll help just us buying one cable, then we can use it on the camera to the computer. We can then take that out. If we need to connect the Roku to the TV, we can do that as well. So full-size HDMI. Like I said, I don't know how much this is going to change the entire ergonomic of the camera, but this is just something I think would be really cool to see in the Canon R7 Mark II should it happen. So full-size HDMI, I think and I believe that any Canon shooter out there can agree with that. So with that being said, let's move on to number 5. The fifth and last thing I think would be cool to add to the Canon R7 Mark II, because it is a camera known for a lot of sports action photography or wildlife photography. You're taking a lot of frames per second or even video. It's a 32 megapixel video with C-Log 3. I think it would be cool to add a CF Express Type B card to this camera. The CF Express Type B card can read at anywhere from 1,000 to 1,700 megabits per second and write about 1,500 megabits per second. I might have got those numbers backwards, but they're up there. So I think that in this space of when we're talking about fast shooting, a lot of frames per second, a lot of video per second, whatever, a V90 SD card with 300 megabits a second is fine. Like that's what I use and I have no issues. But I feel like a Canon R7 Mark II with the CF Express Type B card slot, and then that second being an SD card slot, will just take this camera to the next level. I'm sure that all these changes or all these additions that I just mentioned in today's video is going to be the product of a very higher priced or more expensive camera, probably pushing it at $2,000, maybe a little bit more. But I feel like this would be a camera, even though it's APS-C, that would directly compete with a lot of full frame cameras with all these additions. Now with those 5 additions, I do have a bonus addition, which I highly doubt will happen, and I'll be very surprised if it does happen, but let's talk about it. C-Log 2. So the Canon R7 has C-Log 3 already, which the dynamic range on that is pretty good. I have no issues with C-Log 3 when I record for client projects, or sometimes when I record my talking head videos. I do sometimes record in C-Log 3 just to practice color correcting and color grading, but C-Log 2 is going to give a little bit more of that dynamic range, so you can kind of push those blacks closer to 0 and you'll still see some detail in there. You can push those highlights up closer to 100 and you'll still see some detail. There. So C-Log 3, you're gonna crush the blacks a little bit easier, but like I said, the dynamic range on C-Log 3 is not bad, it's not terrible, but C-Log 2 just giving you the little bit more. Now, of course, like I said, with C-Log 2 in the Canon R7 Mark II, I highly doubt that will happen, but it'll be something that would be really cool to add in there if you ask me. So I just created probably a $2,500 camera, but if anybody uses the R7 like me, you would probably pay that if they added all these features in there. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments about these additions. If these additions were to be made in the Canon R7 Mark II, let me know what you think. Like I said, this video is not I think these definitely should be in the Canon R7 Mark II. This is just something that I think would be cool, and they would definitely benefit me if they were in the Canon R7 Mark II. So with that being said, if this video was some entertainment, education, or whatever to you, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more content where this came from. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and until next time, peace.